transmission by reminding each and every one of you that the title of this transmission is This Transmission Has No Title. Now, we will explain why it is this way a little bit later on. But let us begin with the information that we intend to deliver this day. We are talking about the concept of randomness and synchronicity and perfect timing. Let us begin with this description. Most of you have seen the following effect. When you see a wheel on one of your cars spinning, or when you see one of your airplane propellers turning, when it reaches a certain rate of spin, a certain frequency, you start to notice a particular kind of illusion, where when it is spinning fast enough at a certain rate, it starts to appear as if the blades or the spokes begin to stand still, and sometimes even appear to be turning backwards from the way you know that the propeller or wheel is actually turning. This can serve as an analogy for the idea of how, when you shift billions of times per second through different frames of different parallel realities, you can equate this shifting to the spinning of these wheels, these blades, and because it is shifting very rapidly, spinning very rapidly, it sort of sets up a kind of random scenario where, like one of your wheels of chance, you never are quite sure where it's going to land. But the idea is that as it spins, as you shift, even though it may present itself in a variety of ways to make it appear as if the spokes and the blades are either frozen or moving backwards or taking on a different kind of spin rate other than the rate you know that the wheel or blades are actually turning at, you can use this analogy in the following way. By combining this randomness of spin, this rate of spin, this frequency of spin or shifting, and combining it with your frequency, it will determine exactly how you will perceive the spokes or the blades, at what particular point in its rotation they will appear to you. So the idea is that by altering your own frequency state, your state of being, it will determine exactly where you see the spokes, where you see the blades in their rotation. This is kind of a three-dimensional holographic idea where you get to determine exactly what it is you are perceiving by knowing that this shifting rate, this spinning rate in front of you, gives you all sorts of opportunities to see the spokes in different positions. And it is a good analogy for the idea that you cannot perceive what you're not the vibration of first. Whatever position the spokes or blades seem to be in is absolutely reflective and precisely reflective of exactly the combination of the rate of change in the spin or the shifting and the frequency rate that you yourself are projecting by your state of being. So, everything in a sense is presented to you randomly for your ability, your opportunity to decide, to choose where you see the spokes, and in your physical reality that translates to what opportunities you see, what paths you see, what inspirations might come to you that will be visible to you at a certain frame rate because of your particular frequency rate in combination with the randomness of the spin, so to speak, that you are presented with in the shifting through parallel realities. Now, yes, the paradox is that the rate of spin, the rate of shift, doesn't change, but your perception of it does as you change your state of being, as you change your frequency, as you change your frame rate, to give you the ability to see the spokes at different places and moving in different directions at different times. So paradoxically, even though the rate of spin, the rate of shifting is fixed, it presents itself to you in a way that you get to alter what appears to be the frame rate, what appears to be the frequency of the spin, the rotational rate, by your vibrational state, by your state of being. Therefore, we are going to, in our meditation exercise coming up, give you a particular technique that can allow you more conscious control over your frequency, and thus, by being in a certain state, more experience of a particular frame rate or rotational rate of the spokes, the blades, or the shifting through parallel realities, so that you can begin to more consciously pick the path by your frequency that is more in alignment with who you prefer to be, and begin to really perceive synchronicity bringing you those things, and only those things, that are in alignment with that frame rate, that is the combination of the rate of the spin of the wheel and your particular frequency. So, let us do that when we have the meditation, so that you can apply this into your physical reality experience in a much more conscious way. All right, now we come to the meditation exercise based on your particular frequency with the frame rate shifting that is presented to you, so that you can experience a particular pattern, a specific pattern of where the spokes are, where the blades are, that will present itself to you through synchronicity. So become relaxed, allow yourself to breathe gently, deeply, easily, regularly. Let the cares of the day melt away. Just be here now, focused on this idea. What you will do in this exercise is you will, in a comfortable position, begin to breathe regularly, deeply, when you wish to, in your own place of comfort. And what you will do is you will allow yourself, when breathing, to feel your vibrational frequency rising. And as you do so, in your imagination, you will also hold an image of the spinning wheels. And when you, in your imagination, as you breathe, as you know you are raising your frequency, when you see the spokes of the spinning wheel or the blades freezing and appearing to not move, that is the beginning when you know you are in alignment. When it appears no longer to be moving because it is spinning at a particular rate, then you are perfectly calibrated to the idea of the frequency that will begin the exercise. Now, once you have achieved in your imagination the idea that the spoke of the wheel no longer seems to be moving because you are hitting exactly that particular frame rate as it spins, and you are seeing that spoke exactly at the same position over and over and over again in its rotation, so it appears to be not moving. Now allow yourself to adjust your breathing so that you are dialing, in a sense, your frequency up or down. It's all right if you go down a little bit, it doesn't matter. This is just for the purpose of control, the purpose of experiencing the control of dialing your frequency up and down. And when you do that, in your imagination, allow yourself to see the spoke changing its position. Backwards, forwards, doesn't matter. But allow yourself to gain some experience with just feeling your vibration going up and down, sliding up and down a little bit. Doesn't have to be large. and then allow yourself to key your imagination to it to see, even though the wheel is still spinning very quickly, to see the frame rate shifting back and forth as you perceive where that spoke is when it hits that rotation at the same time over and over again, but then starts to move a little bit in one direction because you're changing where you are perceiving the spoke back and forth. If it starts to spin a little bit, that's all right. Just let it. Again, master your breathing, bring your imagination back into focus so that you are bringing that spoke back into the position that it appears to be, not moving. But just give yourself the experience of letting the spoke appear to be in different positions back and forth for a moment. Once you have done that for a few minutes, whatever feels correct to you, bring it back into the center at the top and allow it again to appear to be frozen as you adjust your breathing, as you adjust your frequency rate so that it matches in your imagination the idea that the spoke is hitting the same point over and over again so it appears to be frozen. Now, as you begin to gain experience with this, allow yourself now in your imagination to think of and to view different circumstances and situations in your life, different opportunities, different pathways, different choices that you may make based on whatever your current situation is, if you have different choices that can be made. Allow yourself then to use the same breathing technique and allow yourself, first and foremost, to remember in your imagination when you brought that spoke back to center and it seemed to be frozen. Allow yourself now to allow different opportunities to spin before you randomly as if they are stuck to a spinning wheel. And as you now gain familiarity with what it feels like in your vibration to know when that spoke is frozen in the center, allow yourself now to superimpose in your imagination the idea of what opportunity is lining up in the same way when you achieve the same state of being that allowed you to perceive the spoke as frozen. Allow the opportunity and synchronicity to present itself to you, and allow the feeling of your vibration, allow the feeling and that sensation of passion to be there to align with it, to know that as you gain familiarity and experience with this technique, the opportunity that will be most in alignment, most synchronized with that vibrational frequency where the spoke is centered and frozen, that opportunity, that pathway, that choice will also then move and present itself exactly in the same position, unwaveringly, so that you will understand more clearly that that is the thing that represents your passion, or that is the thing that represents what you need to focus on at that moment, whether it's representative of your passion or not. It will be the thing that you need to deal with, the thing that will bring you in touch with whatever belief system you are dealing with at that moment in relation to that circumstance, in relation to that choice, that will put you squarely in touch with, here is your focus for the moment. So if it's the focus of dealing with a fear-based or negative belief system that you need to do at that moment, that is what will come up. If it is simply the idea of a choice that represents the alignment with your passion, that will come up. And this will also increase your ability to learn the discernment to tell the difference between the two. So this exercise, this meditation, will bring you into a sharper focus and bring your reality into a sharper focus, so that in combination with these two frequencies overlapping and combining, you can use this as a compass needle to bring clearly into focus what you need to deal with in any given circumstance or any given choice that may be presented to you, so that it aligns with you, it appears to be centered for you, front and center, as to what you need to deal with at that particular moment by using this particular technique based on the idea of the randomness of the spinning of the wheel, but the precision of your vibration bringing into focus exactly where that spoke in relation to you seems to be centered and unmoving. This is something you can practice on your own. Breathing, feeling your vibration rise and fall, seeing the spinning wheel and the spoke freezing, and then substituting opportunities and choices in your life so that you can know exactly more clearly what to focus on. Just practice this. You'll get better at it. It may take a little practice, but that's all right. It will be something that can really bring clarity and sharpness of focus into your life and eventually allow you to very quickly determine what it is you need to pay attention to and allow all the other things to drop away or to go into fuzziness off to the side where you are just looking at that one spoke that is there for you at that particular moment. And that's what you need to deal with. And that will keep you squarely in the present, squarely in the moment, squarely in the now. Use this permission slip technique in your own way. Allow yourself to allow your imagination to make subtle adjustments to it. But the idea can give you clarity of focus, sharpness of awareness if you continue to practice this, but we will leave that up to you. Now, the announcement that we would like to make that you can utilize now is to use this technique, and by instituting a particular image in your mind and aligning with it, bringing it into alignment just for the purpose of this particular exercise, bring into alignment, when you use this technique, the image that we have given you of what we call our phone number. A black background with a black equilateral triangle pointing upwards, separated from the background by a deep blue light behind the triangle. Allow that to come into focus until it is centered and unmoving. And in that state, see if you can receive the actual title we actually have given this transmission, because there is a specific title, and we are going to play a little game and do a little exercise of interactivity to see if how many of you can pick up on the title we are actually giving this transmission. So this is a little game we will play to see how many of you, what percentage of you can actually focus into the vibration of our collective consciousness to pick up on the actual title of this transmission. So we're going to have a little fun in this interactive exercise. When you believe that you have an understanding of the title we have actually chosen, then by all means you can send in your title, your guess, so to speak, your perception, if you will, of the title we have given it, and we will then calibrate and calculate what percentage of you were able to focus on that. Now, if you don't get it, that's all right. All it takes, again, is more practice, and we will do some similar ideas and similar interactive exercises, again, to help hone these skills, hone this ability for you to really dial in to the frequencies that will deliver the information that you need at that moment. But for now, this is just for fun as an interactive exercise, just to be able for us to take a calculation and a reading on the idea of the collective vibration, where you're at, and how effective you are able to be in applying these techniques and these ideas in adjusting your frequency so that you can gain more experience in dialing in the information that you need in perfect timing through synchronicity, in aligning with other levels of your own consciousness and other consciousness such as our own. So we will look forward to receiving your particular answer as to what our title for this transmission actually is that we have already chosen. And we look forward to having more interactive fun with all of you. We thank you for allowing us to co-create with you this particular interactive meditation. We will proceed, as usual, right now, with your questions and answers that will give you more conscious control over choosing the path that is more in alignment with what you prefer to experience in your physical reality.
Hi, how are you today?
Perfect. Please proceed however you wish.
Okay, thank you. So our first question that we have is, what shifts would you need to see for more UFO sightings to occur?
Well, again, when you follow the formula of acting on your passion to the best you can with no insistence on the outcome and remain in a positive state, you will constantly be upgrading and accelerating your vibratory frequency. When you do that, you will make your senses more acute, more able to perceive what is going on around you all the time, but may be invisible to you at this point. So it's about refining and honing your senses by continuing to accelerate your frequency and expand your consciousness. In terms of the idea of your entire society, obviously by navigating yourself in the direction of the kind of reality you prefer more and more and more, by taking the actions in your life every day that are more representative of the kind of reality you prefer to experience, you will then either individually or collectively within groups allow yourself to constantly bring yourself closer and closer and closer to the idea of being able to perceive more ships, being able to perceive that there's a lot of activity around you from extra-dimensional and extraterrestrial beings, and also bring yourself much closer to contact.
Oh, wow, wonderful. So, in other words, there are currently different activity happening. It's just that we're not able to necessarily perceive it because we're not in that vibrational match. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So in 2016, during the State of the Union address, your father promoted you to head of the Council of Contact Specialists. I channel a being from the Essassani, and there is a growing number of new channelers. What are the next phases or steps for channelers like myself that channel other than following our excitement?
The idea, of course, as always, is regardless of what other beings you may make connections to, is to improve the connection, strengthen the connection between your physical mind and your own higher mind, so that you can become your versions on Earth of the beings that are representative of connections that you have made. It's all for the purpose not only of bringing through information that can help people make new choices, but the idea also is to bring through that energy, not only for others, but for yourselves as channels, to become your versions of those beings on Earth as yourselves, your full selves. You understand?
Yes, I understand.
So then you become living examples of living the kind of lives that are representative of passion, joy, creativity, love. And then by being a living example, you are allowing others to see in you that they can choose to operate that way themselves, should they so desire. So the idea is twofold: sharing of information outward to give people options, and actually becoming your version of the idea of any other beings, so that you become a living example, which then also provides more energy, more accelerated, uplifted frequencies, and more options for people to see that they can choose that for themselves as well. Not that they have to, but at least you're giving them the option.
And now with this new energy that others are bringing forward as well, do you feel that it is assisting in preparing people for having more contact?
Well, of course. As I've always said, in a sense, you have to meet us halfway. So the idea of following the formula, which upgrades your frequency, makes you more capable, more probable of experiencing contact, because you're coming closer and closer and closer vibrationally to the version of Earth that already exists, that's already having contact.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Does that help you?
Yes, it does. And so I feel very connected to Willa Hillcrest. And even with hearing the Orinoco's quest story, I felt as though I have like a presence in that time frame.
You don't, but you may be connecting to individuals who do. Remember, everything exists at the same time, including all people. So it's not that it's necessarily you as a physical individual, but you may be making a connection to someone in that time frame and drawing energy, information, and experience from them to guide you in this life.
Oh, okay. So almost like a parallel version, possibly, of myself.
In a sense. But again, when you say myself, That's a loose terminology. It may be an extension of the same oversoul that you are an extension of, but it's not like reincarnationally you ever become anyone else or anyone ever becomes you, because everyone exists at the same time. So you make connections from individual to individual because you all simultaneously exist, but you interpret that connection as if it's a past or future connection because of your space-time perspective.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So, but yes, you are connecting to individuals in that time frame on Earth, upline.
Oh, perfect. That's exciting.
Yes.
So we are running retreats to get people vibrationally ready.
All right.
Using the shamanic path. Another question for Willa, or around that time frame, is on average, how many ceremonies of divinorum do they do for each level of mastery, or is there a set amount?
There is not a set amount. It depends on the individual and what it is they seek to do. So remember, of course, that divinorum is specifically formulated for hybrid genetics. Not for humans.
Right.
So the idea is, again, according to the individual choices that they make about what they want to get out of the levels of mastery, that will determine when and where the necessity of additional divinorum rituals may be created.
Okay. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yes. Will that do?
Yes, for that question. Can you scan my energy and tell me if I've had any contact with precursors recently or ever in my life?
It appears you may have now and then passed close by some.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. So could you give us a physical and energetic description of the Anu Het and see if they have any messages for our civilization?
Generally speaking, they will evolve into a form that is somewhat similar as a cross between a hybrid and the ancient Anunnaki, being that they will be relatively tall, somewhat slender. Many of them will have all black eyes. They will have slightly blue-tinted skin. Many of them will choose to have longer dark hair. Some of them will have lighter hair as well. But they will be kind of a cross between a hybrid idea with enlarged eyes, somewhat slender, and they will be a cross between the hybrid and the ancient Anunnaki. They will extend themselves out into the galaxy in such a manner as to create a new interstellar alliance that will last approximately 100,000 years.
Wow.
There is no direct message that they need to deliver at this particular moment.
That's interesting. I feel that I've actually seen, I've seen like a light form that I feel was projected of them, but I've also seen how you have described the way they physically look. I've seen in my mind's eye or even in dreams, that particular physical description.
Yes, but that's because they exist within the genetic matrix of the evolution of Earth becoming the sixth hybrid race, which will then blend with the others to become the seventh. So the ability to perceive that genetic imprint of what will come to be is ensconced within the overall evolutionary pattern.
Wow, that's exciting. It's interesting how we've kind of evolved over time, not just physically, but energetically, vibrationally, how things have just kind of moved along. And when I was younger, I used to be able to perceive it. And I didn't understand what I was actually perceiving at the time. But now that I've kind of fine-tuned myself, I'm able to understand what it is that I was perceiving. But it's quite fascinating, actually, how that has changed over time.
Well, of course. And again, the more you expand your consciousness, the more you're able to perceive. The more you begin to understand how things work, and you begin to see where everything falls into place and how it's all interconnected. That is par for the course with the expansion of consciousness and the exploration of your spirituality.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So going on another note, I don't know but this question, but I'll go ahead and ask. So I've seen recently, I was driving and I I saw on the side of the road two tall, I believe they were tall whites on the side of the road. And it was like, I mean, I know that they weren't physically there. I felt that they were projecting themselves there. And as I looked at them, I got this shriveling feeling, but I know that it was connected to a memory from my childhood as having interactions with them. Is there anything you might be able to
well, you're part of the hybridization agenda, and people that are involved in the hybridization agenda, when they are shifted to other dimensions to have interactions in accordance with what they have agreed to participate in that agenda, will sometimes come into contact with the beings that you refer to as the tall whites. So it may literally be the idea of the imprint of a memory projected into the present for you.
Oh, okay.
In other words, sometimes they will do that as a marker to remind you, to awaken the idea of the memories of past encounters, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's how I felt. I felt that it was that, because I know my mind, consciously, I'm not afraid, but it was I got this shriveling feeling down my spine, like I was taken back to being afraid. And that just for that split moment, and I was like, whoa, whoa, like what was that?
Yes, well, it's not an untypical reaction of the body consciousness going into the fight or flight mode to survive, since at the earlier encounter, you weren't necessarily feeling like you were in control. But again, there is nothing to be afraid of.
Yes, I agree, because I feel that in my heart it's opening. It calms me, it soothes me, it makes me feel very happy.
All right, and now at this time we must move on.
Okay.
So we thank you and bid you good day.
Yes, you too. Thank you. Love you, Bashar. Bye.
Our unconditional love to you as well. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing very well. How are you?
Perfect, thank you. Please proceed however you so desire with your question.
All right. I have a question about the Interstellar Alliance.
Yes?
What is the status of that? You said that they would be coming, or they said we are coming. What is the status on that right now?
It is premature to discuss that issue at this time.
All right, I'll go to the next question. I was wondering about, is not voting kind of like voting to have no government?
No. It is important for people to act and make a choice. This is what's crucial at this time, because as we have said, action is the language of physical reality. And so the idea is you must take some action in some way, shape, or form, in whatever way you are capable of expressing the vibration that you prefer. The action is critical. Now, if it's not possible for someone to actually physically vote in terms of how they fit into the society, there are still many actions that can be taken in the direction that are more representative of the kind of reality that you prefer. But whatever actions you are capable of taking, it's very crucial at this time that those actions be taken so that the voices, in a sense, as actions, can be heard and counted vibrationally.
Okay, I was thinking that sometimes it seems as if not acting is actually a form of action. You said that actions not taken will matter as well.
In certain circumstances, but that's not the case here.
Okay. All right. I was exploring how cause and effect are kind of the same.
Well, in a sense, they are interrelated, and in terms of the idea of the illusion of time, it isn't always that the effect happens after the cause. They happen simultaneously.
Okay.
But they spread out in your physical reality as if one happens first.
Mm-hmm. Well, with this particular experience I'm having right now, I was selected to ask you a question, and I didn't have one at the time, but I still thought it would be really exciting to ask you and to interact with you.
Yeah.
And then, like, for an hour after I was selected, I still couldn't think of anything. But then after that, it was like I was downloaded with so many questions for you.
All right.
And I even found some questions that I had saved on my phone.
All right. Well, we won't necessarily have the time to answer them all, but proceed with what you believe is most important.
Well, I was just wondering, was that like kind of an example of an effect leading to a cause in a way? Because
you are referring to the idea of being asked to ask questions, but not having them, and then suddenly having them when you need them?
Yes, like I shifted into that version of myself that had them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would like to, is that kind of making time more malleable and flexible and seeing things?
In a sense, yes, but it's more directly an example of what we talk about when we say you will know what you need to know when you need to know it. Things happen in perfect timing, in perfect synchronicity. It's not necessarily important that you know certain things before it's time to know them. But if you stay in that proper state of receptivity and openness, you will know them, and when you need to know them, and not a second later than you need to know them. They will come to you in exactly what you experienced in that way.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I have a question about your ship. Is it still about 7,000 miles above Bell Rock?
Give or take. It fluctuates.
Does that distance have an effect on the dissemination of energy that is going around our world?
Well, it's a reflection. It's not that it has an effect. It's a reflection of the energy going on within your collective consciousness.
Okay, but I know that you're pumping energy into the vortices, right?
We are always doing that to the best we can, but nevertheless, the idea of the distance is more a reflection than an effect.
Okay, so it doesn't really have an effect on how much energy is going around the globe.
It has no effect on what we give you. It may be reflective of how much you're paying attention to or willing to allow in.
Okay. Well, you recently said that there was a greater awareness of more ET contact, that there wasn't any upsurge in ET contact or like UFO sightings, but our awareness has been increasing with the Pentagon's acknowledgement.
Yes. Because again, there are a lot of things happening that most of you are simply unaware of. The real barometer, the real shift, is when you become more aware of what's already going on. Now, yes, of course, sometimes the amount of things happening will fluctuate, but not in any great degree. It's more about how you are able to perceive what's happening than it is about more things actually happening.
Well, I would like to highlight that good sign toward ET contact then, since our...
Well, again, the idea of the admission that has recently been released is a reflection of the idea of the expansion of consciousness and the willing to accept and absorb the idea that you are not alone. So it's a start, and more can happen, but those are signs.
Now, are the other extraterrestrial ships, are they at different distances over the vortices?
Some of them, not all of them, are involved in reflecting that idea. Some of them just go about their business in a variety of different ways.
Okay. You said that we could change our agreements, and that's different than breaking them, right?
What we said is that you can change your theme. Yes.
Okay. So can we change our agreements, though?
As far as you can change your theme, yes. But there are certain aspects of the agreement you will probably not change. It's not likely. Now, again, if you want to say that any change is a change of the whole agreement, you can. But nevertheless, some things you will continue to create even in the new agreements, simply because it serves you to do so in terms of what you overall agreed to experience in this life. So you can change certain aspects of it, and if to you that's an entirely new agreement, then that's fine and true. But some aspects may remain, because you will keep creating them.
All right, I have one last question. You said that the 5 laws are universal laws. Now, is the formula also a universal formula that you give to other species?
To an extent, yes. There are some differences here and there, depending upon the culture, depending upon the reality that they inhabit. But in general, yes, but mostly in terms of the idea of the creation of your physical experience, and to some degree, some of the lower astral and maybe mid-level spiritual experiences. Beyond that, the idea of the formula may alter quite a bit depending upon the dimension that we're dealing with. However, the 5 laws are everywhere, more than universal. They are infused throughout existence itself, because the 5 laws are a description of the structure and nature of existence itself, and that covers everything. The formula may be more specific to certain realities such as yours.
Okay. So everything is the 5 laws. You said everything is the 5 laws in different combinations.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. Will that do?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Too.
And to you, Avail.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
How is your heart today, Bashar?
Perfect, and yours?
Expanding, growing.
All right. What would you like to discuss?
A few different things.
Yes.
So during a transmission that you did last year, that my sister, Sanyu Estelle, who you have described as the curious Kokoakaluka,
Yes.
she asked a question on my behalf regarding a spiritual initiation that I had done in Nigeria. And you were only able to give a little bit of information, but you did reference the Olan Kin.
Yes, the observers.
And I would like to know a little bit more information if you're able to speak on that.
Well, again, the Olan Kin is a faction of the first contact specialists that are the arrangers, the observers, the information gatherers, the data storage individuals that will supply first contact specialists with all of the data, all of the energy, all of the frequencies, all of the information necessary to maintain the idea of, from their observations, what is happening most immediately that the first contact specialists can take advantage of in dealing with their respective cultures.
Okay. And is there anything that you can share about what they observed for me during that process? Can you share anything about me specifically?
Well, as you say, they are observing that, as you put it, there is an expansion of your consciousness, and therefore your senses are becoming more increasingly sensitized to things that you might heretofore not been capable of perceiving. So you are on an upward grade, so to speak, in raising your frequency by continuing to act on your passion, by continuing to explore your inner self and discover more of who you are and express more of who you are in any rituals or permission slips that you may be attracted to use.
Beautiful. And it's so interesting because the door that's right next to me just now, which has been closed even though it wasn't locked before, but it blew open within a few seconds of you beginning to speak.
Well, thank you for your synchronicity.
Is that, did another being just join right now?
No, it is a synchronicity of the expansion of your consciousness, because as you expand, you open doors. So you can take the credit.
Thank you, myself. Did I shift genetically, DNA-wise?
Any shift to some degree is a genetic shift. It depends upon, again, exactly how you navigate through the different versions of Earth and the different versions of your personality and physical self in each of those alternate reality versions of Earth. There will always be some slight degree of genetic shift, but sometimes it can be more than other times, depending upon, let's just say colloquially, how many frames you skip.
And did it shift dramatically or more so dramatically for me in this situation?
A little bit. I'd say maybe 15, 20%.
Okay.
That's actually quite a lot.
Okay. In addition to forging a stronger connection with the deities or beings that I initiated into, did my team of spirit guides or the civilizations that I connect to more often than not make a dramatic shift in light of this initiation?
Well, it's kind of a funny way to put it, because as you choose to shift, there may be shifts going on their side as well, but it won't be to the same pattern as yours, because many of them are already shifted to where they need to be in a sense in order to be of greatest assistance to you. So their shifts may not be as apparent, even though everyone is shifting all the time. They may not necessarily need to show a greater amount of shift as you might, because they are already mostly in the state they need to be of best assistance to you.
Okay. But in terms of did I have maybe a couple or one guide before initiation who then left and maybe another one stepped in, or for the most part, it has been the same and how they interact with me may or may not have shifted?
I see what you are asking. Yes, there is the likelihood that some of them may have traded places, because if you have gone on to a different level, if you've gone on to a different phase of your expansion, it may be necessary for someone a little bit more familiar with that phase to step in and take over for a while. It doesn't mean the other may have completely left, but they may have handed the reins over to someone who has more experience or is coming from a level that you need to deal with at this point. So yes, that's not uncommon.
Okay. I have an energy that lends itself to, well, as I saw, opening and closing things or events.
Yes.
And I ground energy, and I have been described as someone who grounds energy.
Yes.
So in addition to that being as a result of just the work and the healing that I do for myself, where does that come from, or what civilizations or beings am I connecting to when I do that specific type of work?
The specific grounding
or opening and closing. Am I connecting to a specific civilization when, for example, I'm in an event and I've been called to open or close the event or ground the event?
Most of the idea of the grounding energy, the alignment energy, and the stabilization energy in that way will come from your connection to the idea we call the Arcturus vibrational gate.
Okay. And do they connect with me primarily or most strongly in those instances, or am I connected to them kind of consistently throughout my...
There's always a consistent connection, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a lot of activity in the connection until needed.
Arcturus, okay. I see that the main channels for my work, at least as they're expressed right now, is through singing or sound healing.
All right.
Through words, reflections, or intuitive guidance as I speak.
How exciting, yes.
Yes. And through laying of the hands, healing.
All right.
Now, are there, in addition to or outside of the Arcturus, are there other beings or civilizations that support me during specific activities, or do they all help me with all of them?
No, it's not necessary that they all help you with all of them to the same degree. Most of your guidance comes from spirit guides and your higher mind. Now and then you'll tap into some of the other connections you have to hybrids or other extraterrestrial civilizations when and where necessary. So it's really a dynamically changing chorus, a dynamically changing orchestration depending upon what's needed in the moment.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I experience that. I think at times I hear people describe their spirit guides, or they'll be able to name a spirit guide or an ancestor that helps them in a specific moment. Yeah. And I haven't been able to do that per se.
That's all right. That's all right. It's not always necessary to label things to utilize the energy, and sometimes the label can actually get in the way. Because the idea is you're connecting also to other simultaneous incarnations as they exist to bring experience, energy, and information to you as you need it. So you're doing that with humans as well in simultaneous incarnations that exist alongside you in what you call different time periods. But the idea is that sometimes if you sit there and think, well, I need to know who this is specifically and where it's specifically coming from, you're kind of actually slowing the process down, because that's not really as important as simply bringing the energy connection through to do the work you need to do. If you need to know, if you need names, if you need labels, then synchronicity will automatically provide them. If it doesn't provide them, then at the moment you don't need them, and it would actually possibly slow you down. So you have to trust the way things unfold.
Okay. So is that the same kind of reason why whenever someone comes and they introduce themselves to you and they say their name and you say, if you insist, is it because the idea of names can be a limiting or prohibiting factor?
Yes.
So then on that note, or the opposite side of that note, so I have multiple names by which I am called, and I will likely gain more names.
That's fine. So, that's a different issue.
I'd like to go into that issue a little bit. So is the idea of having multiple names, which for me, they are giving specific vibrations that help you tap into different aspects of yourself. The
Yes.
more names that a person has, is it the more they become or have access to become or have more permissions to stepping into more of themselves, kind of similarly to having no name at all? Are they?
That's one side of it. And the other side of it is you are being given a reflection that you are, shall we say, generalized or available or accessible enough in many different aspects, many different dimensions of yourself, that different people with different perceptions of you can still approach you and give you their version of you, to know that you are actually capable of crossing that many borders and entering that many belief systems of others.
Wow.
So it's both.
Okay. So then looking at permission slips. So there's something about me. So on the one hand, I recognize that we ultimately are our own permission slips.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, there's something about me that really loves the idea of permission slips. And when
That's
I'm
fine.
doing
There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. Again, remember, if you are attracted to use something, the attraction is an indication that that particular permission slip is aligned with your belief system enough to allow you to give yourself permission to be more of who you are. You can still use them. It can be fun. There's nothing wrong with it. And again, it can also make you more relatable in the reality in which you're working to others as well, to give them a technique, to give them a ritual. This is one of the reasons why we actually do describe many different kinds of permission slip techniques from time to time. And as long as you also let people know these are just seeds, your imagination is open to changing them in whatever way you believe works for you, or you're free to use whatever else works for you. But we're willing to plant the seeds to sort of get you going. And that's all right. There's nothing wrong with it. It can act as kind of a Kickstarter, as you say.
Okay, because that's what I do when I'm doing intuitive guidance for individuals. I seem to pick up on what my spirit is seeing as permission slips that they may be aligned to, and then it's up to them to go through with that or modify it as they please.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with using them as long as you don't lose track of the fact that you are the one making the changes, or that they are, or you let them know that they are. But in the meantime, even though you may know that you're the one that is the ultimate permission slip, you can still use other permission slips to augment the experience and to give yourself a pleasant process.
Beautiful. Occasionally at night, before I fall asleep, I'll start to experience what I can only describe as a surge of energy through my body.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like heat radiating everywhere. Sometimes my hands will go numb.
Well, you're about to shift frequencies into another realm, another reality, and therefore sometimes the body, not necessarily having completely acclimated to that higher frequency, may experience a little bit of momentary resistance and feel the body heating up, or feel other phenomenology in the body that represents a shift from a lower to a higher frequency, until you get used to it. It's a simple physics issue.
My work is just to breathe and surrender to the experience.
Yes, it is. Just go with the flow. Okay. And now, speaking of going with the flow, we must move on.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hey, good day, Bashar. Thank you for being here.
It is our passion and our pleasure. Please proceed.
Okay, so who am I speaking with now? Am I speaking with an individual Bashar, or is this a collective?
You are always speaking with an individual, but we are always tapped into a collective based on what we need to tap into.
Is Elon there? I mean,
not present, but part of the collective in some way, shape, or form, but not necessary to be present in this conversation.
Okay, cool. Well, we have limited time, so I'm going to try to move through the questions.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks again. This is exciting. Well, first of all, I'm going to try to feel your energy. Are you aware of where I am physically?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Are you aware of me, just my own personal self, prior to this conversation? I mean, I've been
by your vibrational patterns, yes, to some degree, as we need to be.
Is it relative to like me studying the material the last 10 years, my progress? Is there any awareness there? Or is that something
we read what we read in terms of the vibrational state that you are in, that we need to perceive for this conversation? So we understand that you are exploring the expansion of consciousness. That is actually self-evident, because if it wasn't, you wouldn't be having this conversation with us. You would never have found us.
Right. Okay. So there's the 5 laws that you've stated before, and I have a question. The only constant is change, except for the first 4 laws. So that implies like constants on Earth will change like gravity. Is that correct?
We are talking about the idea of the nature and structure of existence itself. We're not necessarily referring to local conditions all the time when we talk about that, although everything is changing constantly, billions of times a second. It's just that in the next moment, you may create a new reality that seems so similar to the last one that you can't necessarily perceive much of a difference. So that's what a constant is in that sense. It's a recreation of an aspect of your physical reality that appears to not necessarily be that different in terms of the way you configure it from the last configuration, even though it is completely new. But you're creating your illusion of continuity to make it appear as if it hasn't really changed. Yet it's changing all the time. It's just that you're using all the changes to make it appear that nothing's changed.
Right. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Question regarding a past deceased loved ones, Ryan and my grandma. Is that is that a being that you're able to access right now? Like, can you talk to Ryan?
It depends on whether, again, there is necessity in doing so.
Okay, well, I'm asking, can you please say hi to Ryan? Is he going to respond?
But you just said hi.
I know, but with your abilities, I feel like you have it's easier for me to get an answer from you than for me to get a direct answer myself.
Why?
Well, I've worked on communing with Ryan, and it's not as direct as if you do it.
How do you know? Have you not had any dream communications with this person?
No, I haven't. No, I have not, and it would be nice.
All
so
right.
I guess.
Have you asked for dream communication?
No.
Well, why don't you? Tonight, when you go to sleep, open up and ask to speak to that being, because then you're expressing a willingness and an openness to receive a more clear communication.
Yeah.
So
thank you for
this
that.
is hinged to some degree on your ability to use your own imagination to come up with ways in which you believe communication is possible.
Okay.
And by the way, that suggestion comes from him.
Cool.
So there you go.
Thank you. I'll do that.
All right.
Okay.
You used to do together more often than not? Is there some particular activity that specifically reminds you of that particular person more than anything else?
Let's see. We would certainly play.
Play what?
Well, let's see. We had a really fun time making a class project. One time we made a video that was really crazy.
All right. So again, the idea is that that particular frequency of that particular thought is something that can actually give you better ability to commune and connect, or be aware of the connection that's there between you and that person, even though they may be in a different state. Because that vibration represents the very idea of the experience of connecting and communicating with that specific individual. So by going to sleep and asking before you go to sleep and remembering and feeling that vibration of communication, it may make it easier for you to open up to receive whatever that person will send you, because you're going to sleep in a state of being that already represents connection and communication between you.
Fabulous. That's very helpful.
All right.
That grounds me in exactly what to do. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Okay, so when I was a little kid, I had a reoccurring nightmare of a witch that would come into the basement. It was dark. And I could access that feeling just like I would actually, it's funny you said that about Ryan, because I can go there with that witch and I can commune with her, and like I get, all my skin gets chicken skin, my hairs stand up.
All right.
I'm just wondering, is there something I need to do to integrate that experience more? Because it was terrifying. It was the most terrifying.
Yes. Well, you're dealing with a couple of things there. One, you're dealing with beings that are reflecting to you that you may be holding on to some fear-based beliefs. And so it would be perhaps beneficial for you to recognize that they're just pointing out that you are willing to go into states of being very easily that are not necessarily in alignment with who you prefer to be. In a sense,
Right.
helping you divest yourself of things you may have grown up with that you no longer need as an adult.
Okay, and on that exact idea, there are things I've grown up with that I've held on to that are emotional triggers that are...
All right. Let me continue, however, with the idea of that particular entity, because
Yes.
to use a kind of paradoxical pun, if you will, it's a reflection to you to allow you to decide which person you really prefer to be.
Okay, so if I'm now face to face with this witch,
Yes.
I'm terrified. And so I've done a process where I've tried to accept that that's an aspect of me and maybe find love for it, but I don't feel like I've integrated the knowledge.
It's fine to realize it's an aspect of yourself and find love for it, but that's not actually the process that gives you the information you need to go beyond it. The process is what we've described many times, in that you stay in that moment and find out what belief you're holding on to that generates that feeling. Because remember, feelings don't exist in a vacuum. So you're being given an opportunity, you're being given a message that if you're feeling a certain way, that means you have a certain belief you're buying into. And you can use the feeling to ask the typical question of what you would have to believe is true about yourself in order to feel the way you're feeling. So use it that way, and you'll find out what the belief is. Make it conscious rather than unconscious. Listen carefully to what the belief is saying to you, and then realize, if you pay attention closely, that what it's saying is nonsensical. When it's nonsensical, it's gone.
Right.
But you have to allow it to be nonsensical by first discovering what it's actually saying, what the belief actually is.
Yeah, no, well, that's wonderful. That's exactly what I'll do.
All right.
And then so with the eye of the needle and the 5 steps, and I've been working with that, I just feel that there's perhaps just more work for me to do on that, but I'm trying to find clarification with the process for the eye of the needle with forgiveness, because can you read my energy that I have maybe a lot of triggers of anger from when I was a child, and that I could access that and I could, go berserk. And I just feel like I don't try to activate that. But I also don't feel that it's been, intellectually, I know I need to forgive my dad, and I go through a process where I think, he was a good dad, and I think of those things. But inside me, if I was in the room with him and he triggered me, then I would just become like the Tasmanian devil. And I think, how do I get rid of that other than not activate it?
All right. Well, first and foremost, there are many approaches you can take to this. The idea first being what we've already talked about. If you feel yourself being triggered, stay in that moment. Don't even include the other person or situation that's triggering you into the process. Just freeze yourself for the moment, isolate yourself in your own reality, and go again into the investigation of what you would have to actually be believing is true about yourself based on what they're actually feeding you. So in other words, you are simply choosing to agree with what they're saying. And therefore you are judging yourself and being angry at yourself for accepting what they're telling you as if it's true when you know it's not. So the idea is to begin with taking your responsibility for your part in the experience of agreeing to what they're saying about you when you know it doesn't have to be true. So first and foremost, be in your own reality and find out what belief you would have to hold on to that would make it seem logical to agree with something you know has nothing to do with you and more to do with their own issues.
Thank you.
You need to see the difference between their reality and your reality and not assume you're in the same reality.
Well, that's wonderful. And to wrap that up, I would feel like I'm trying to understand how to get to the point of forgiveness, because...
All right. One moment.
Please.
Again, don't overthink this or overcomplicate this.
Okay.
The idea of forgiveness is simply the recognition and realization that whatever another person may choose to do is nothing in terms of its bearing upon the course you prefer to take. So what you're doing is you're cutting the ties, you're cutting the chains, you're cutting the ropes that free you to move in the direction you prefer by recognizing you've come to a point of realization where no matter what it is they've done and no matter what it is they do, it has no bearing on your ability to navigate yourself in the direction that you prefer. So why not let go of those things from your reality? It doesn't matter whether they choose to change or not. It only matters that you have decided to let go of things that don't align with who you prefer to be, and forgiving them allows them to go on their way and discover their path and have their processes and their experiences in the path that works for them, while at the same time it frees you and releases you to go on the path that you prefer. So forgiveness works in both directions, which is why we say the first step is to forgive them, and also the second to forgive yourself. Those in combination break the ties that anchor you to things that you finally realize are no longer relevant for you to recreate in your reality, because you're the one, not them. You're the one. If you're still reacting to what they're saying as if it's true, you're the one that's keeping yourself in a reality you don't prefer. They have no impact, no control, and no effect on you that you don't recreate or agree to recreate in your own energy, in your own reality. So it's a clear realization that you exist in different realities, and what is seemingly something that they are choosing has nothing to do with you and the choices you can make.
Well, that's very helpful. Thank you for that explanation.
It also comes with compassion for them, for realizing that they may be on a journey that for them is very challenging and difficult, but that doesn't mean it's your journey.
Okay, to that point.
Or wait a minute. So by forgiving, you are not only freeing yourself, you're freeing them to find their own path, and they no longer necessarily have to think in any way, shape, or form that you have to belong in their reality. Now, whether they think that or not is not important. It's that you recognize that that's what's happening. That's important. They're going to continue on whatever path they're going to choose, and what they do is none of your business. Don't make it your business, is what we're saying, and then you're both free to pursue the path you need to pursue, whether positive or negative.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate this. When you say don't make it your business,
Yes.
what he does or that person does. So I just wonder, for me to take action on this process, is it on that point to take action on that and actually make sure I take action on that to the fullest? Does it imply that there'd be an aspect of that where I call him, for example, and tell him I forgive him? Do I bring up the past and say that?
That's up to you. What feels best to you? What feels most freeing to you?
Awesome.
So thank you for your
Thank you.
contribution.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys.
Good day.
Good day.
All right, good day to you.
Hi, Bashar. Thank you for talking to me.
Of course, it is our passion and our pleasure. Please proceed.
Thank you. I have a question about emotions that I would love your point of view on.
Yes.
How I process them internally. So if my emotions talk to me, like whether it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's anger or anxiety or sadness or wobbly, whatever it is, it's a wobble. I consider it something on the inside, not something on the outside, that I need to either shift my perception or update a belief or change something inside of me for that emotion to change.
Well, yes, of course. You have to own the emotion because it's there. You have to make it your own. Otherwise, you can't change it. But as you have said, the emotion never exists in a vacuum. And emotion is always, underline always as many times as you wish, always the result of something you believe to be true about yourself. Always.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what I do to someone else if they're emotional and blaming me or vice versa. It's internal change.
Well, all right, the way you phrase that, it does matter what you choose to do to others, but the idea is it's not your responsibility how they react. If you are simply really being true to yourself and staying within your integrity and not intentionally doing harm, then the idea of their reaction is their issue alone and not yours.
Thank you for rephrasing that. That's exactly what I meant.
Yes.
And so then if the emotion is really intense, say to speak, and it may take a while to get over, am I able to transform the energy of that emotion into something else, like healing or a passion or an excitement?
You can, but again, it might be temporary unless you understand what the origin of the emotional energy is. Now, when you say if it's really intense, the idea can be for a number of different reasons. If you're talking about the idea of a particular emotion reflecting a fear-based belief system, well, please remember, fear-based belief systems, just like any belief system, are going to be designed to perpetuate themselves, because if beliefs don't make you think they're real, if they don't make you think that they're a fact, you can't have a physical experience, because physical reality is an illusion. So it's the belief system that makes physical reality appear solid by reinforcing what they're telling you through the idea of emotions, thoughts, behaviors, and reflective experiences. But if it's getting intense, especially for the idea of the negative ones, that's usually a sign that you're probably very close to letting it go, and therefore it's going to amp up the tool that it's using of fear to get you to be afraid to let it go by making you think that if you do let it go, something worse will happen. So sometimes intensity is a good sign in that context to let you know you're actually probably really close to letting the fear-based belief go, or it wouldn't have to work so hard to amplify the emotion to prevent you from doing so.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. And so the next question, still on the same topic, is that if the outside experience, say if something on the outside, it could be an accident or it could be something I see wobbles me on the inside, or say if I hurt my shoulder, if I didn't have to hurt my shoulder to feel that physical pain, is the next evolution of that physical pain an emotional pain? Like, is that my body talking to me saying, hey, something's not in alignment?
Well, it can be, because you can go back to the question of why did you feel, or what kind of belief systems are you holding within you that made it seem necessary to have this kind of an experience?
So then in saying that, if you're if I'm an emotional person, I feel a lot of emotions. And
I understand, but what you feel is still based on what you believe.
Can I use my emotions to guide me into the excitement of my heart? Like as
I said, the way you do that, the path you take, is to use the emotion to ask the question, what would I have to believe is true about myself in this circumstance in order to have this feeling? Emotions cannot exist on their own, not in a vacuum. There is no such thing as a feeling until you believe something to be true. So the way to transition it and refocus the energy of the emotion is to transition and refocus the idea of the belief. When you change the belief that's generating the emotion, you automatically change the emotional energy. Now, yes, sometimes people can simply instantly redirect the emotional energy to another task, but if you're not dealing with the origin belief that created the emotion to begin with, it could come back.
Yes, I've seen that it does, unless
well, then you have to find out what the belief is and pay attention to what it's saying to you and let it go when it no longer makes sense. Until you actually let go of that belief, you will always generate, one way or another, at some time or another, the same emotion that goes hand in hand with the belief. Because remember, the belief is using the emotion to reinforce the validity of its reality. But it's nothing but a belief. It's not a fact. It's just a belief system. But it's going to use the emotion to make itself seem more real, more factual, more solid. So, yes, while you might be temporarily capable of diverting the energy to a different task, until you actually find out what the belief is that's generating it, then you're open to the idea of the emotion returning because the belief hasn't gone away.
Great, because I align with that. And so then a lot of my journey, and I'm imagining other people's journey, is updating beliefs constantly.
Absolutely. That's what this is all about. Finding out what beliefs you've been fed as you grew up that simply have nothing to do with you, and dropping that baggage because it doesn't belong to you. It probably came from your parents, your society, your school, your friends, what have you. But the idea is you're learning in this transformational age to streamline yourself and strip yourself down to those belief systems that are actually about you. and not about other people that you happen to be dragging along with you.
Okay, I've got that's great. Thank you, Bashar.
Yes.
I have another question.
Yes.
So my thinking on a situation actually emits it sends out a signal, an emotion. So the idea is that I just keep thinking things that I wish to desire.
No. Listen. You have to understand again one more time. Beliefs generate emotions, thoughts, and behaviors, and experiential reflections of those behaviors, those thoughts, and those emotions to reinforce the validity of the belief. So no matter whether it's emotions that you're feeling or thoughts that you're thinking or behaviors that you're exhibiting and experiences you're having, they are all capable of being used to trace back to what the belief is that's generating them to make the belief seem solid and real. So use them all that way.
Got you. So it is a full-time job, updating beliefs.
Of course. That's what your life is all about. Finding out who you really are. It comes down to the ancient phrase, know thyself. Be transparent to yourself. Understand who and what you really are as a creator being. And that is the whole point of the transformation taking place on your planet at this time. To go from darkness to light, from negative to positive, from limitation to freedom, in all the ways that you possibly can in exploring that theme. Yes, it is a full-time job. That's what your life is all about. Transformation, discovery of who you really are from a new point of view.
Yeah, that's really refreshing, because I find the more I do this, and I've been on the path for a long time doing this, it doesn't seem to go away. There's no end to the journey.
It's not about trying to arrive at a particular destination. It's about being in the moment with what's happening and learning from it, because whatever's happening in the moment is the most important thing that's going on. There is nothing more important.
And that's it. And so the more I dig into this, the more I see deeper and deeper conditionings of who I thought I was. Yes. It's totally different.
Yes.
Okay.
So you are learning to stop being what others told you you needed to be and start being who you actually are. Okay.
And so going back to the beginning of my question with compassion, of course it matters what I do or what someone else does. Absolutely. Yes. And so if someone is perhaps really emotional because of something that they appear I'm doing, I still might need to clean up what I'm doing, so to speak, but the emotion belongs with them.
You can always take a moment and say, all right, what's my degree of responsibility in this? Am I learning something about myself here? Are they giving me advice that I actually need to pay attention to? Always do that first, because you never know. It might be that you've created this reflection to teach yourself something that will help you align a little bit more precisely as who you prefer to be. But when you've decided what it is that it is you needed to get out of it, beyond that, it's the other person's issue, and you can't be responsible for their reactions and their choices.
And what they choose to do with that, or
exactly, that's none of your business at that point.
None of my business.
No, you can always help by sharing ideas that might be different options that you can give to them that they could choose to do if you feel it would be of benefit. That's what we're doing here by giving all of you this information that we know could be used to your benefit. But what you decide to do with this information is absolutely none of our business, because it's your life.
Okay. And is it also when something happens or occurs that is in someone else and wobbles me, however it wobbles me, how you choose to be wobbled.
They cannot wobble you. You choose to be wobbled. Stay in the driver's seat. Stay in control of the creation. Take responsibility for your part in it. You are choosing to be wobbled by continuing to buy into a belief system that says you should be wobbled by it.
100%. Yeah, of course. Thank you. Yeah. And can I look at that in a self-processing way as a part of myself? Say, for instance, it was a friend. Can I say, hey, she could represent my creative self or my...
Yes. As I said, you can always look at what you're given by others as something that might contain information for you. but only up to the point where you determine that information is actually relevant for you. Beyond that, it's only relevant for them.
Okay, and then there's a difference between feelings and emotions,
No, not really. Not really.
Not really?
We understand that you can make differences in your definitions about those ideas. So first and foremost, if you're going to ask a question or make a statement like that, you need to tell us your definition of the difference that you think exists between what you call feelings and what you call emotions.
Okay, thank you. So I would call a feeling like something that my body self-generates, like hunger, like tired.
You're just talking about physical sensations.
Well, they can, yes. So my question was, can they evolve to being an internal self-generation of creativity or an internal self-generation of like love, like a love outward, not what I'm getting.
Well, let's use your imagination. How would a particular physical sensation like that be capable of being utilized in your imagination to some other purpose?
Yes.
Well, I'm asking you the question. I'm asking you the question. Use your imagination.
And one answer to that question to see if I'm on the right track would be if I feel hungry, I could assume one possibility is that it's food, and one possibility is it could be hungry for a conversation, or I could be hungry for something else. So I can use that feeling. Okay.
You can refine your senses to understand in exactly what way you are processing and translating that sensation and what it means for you.
Yes, because eventually I can't stop those physical sensations.
Well, actually, physically you can, but nevertheless, it doesn't mean you should, because it might serve you to figure out exactly what that sensation means for you.
Okay.
But however, I would suggest and encourage you not to overcomplicate it. Sometimes, as you say, a thing is just a thing, and if you have sensations of hunger, you might just be hungry.
Of course, yes. Yes, so what I wanted to get out of this, I have that my journey is about updating beliefs consistently.
Yes.
And following my path of excitement.
Knowing yourself, because what you believe to be true about yourself is what you experience your reality to be. So yes.
And then my emotions keep me on that track by...
Your emotions reinforce what you believe to be true, as if it is real.
That could be anything.
Yes, it could be anything, positive or negative.
Okay, thanks, Bashar.
You are so welcome. Our unconditional love to you.
And back, thank you.
Yes.
Hello, Bashar from Slovenia. My name's Lorina. A lot of times I heard you telling US people that they should vote. I would like to know how their voting is related to open contact. What is the role of the next US president in this scheme of open contact? And I would like to know how can we, non-US residents, contribute to open contact? What is our role, and how can we help this process so that the open contact is possible as fast as it can be? Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Again, the idea of simply suggesting that individuals, where possible, vote in whatever is presented to them as an opportunity to do so is simply another way of saying, make a choice, take an action and make a choice that is in alignment with the vibration that you prefer out of the options available to you. We simply couched it in terms that would make sense for what is happening in particular areas on your planet now politically. However, it's something that goes far beyond the idea of politics. Everyone, anywhere on your planet, can take actions that are available to you that are more in alignment with the idea of the kind of reality that you prefer to experience. It's not necessarily specifically about who the next president might be of your United States. It's more about the actions that you take to make a statement about what kind of vibration, what kind of frequency, what kind of reality you prefer, so that that will supersede the idea of whatever actual physical individual may be present in any particular political position. The idea has more to do with the actions you take and the vibrations you create that are more representative of the reality you prefer than it does any single individual. So no matter whether you are involved in a so-called election or not in your particular area of the planet, it's about looking for the opportunities to take the actions that will reinforce the idea of the kind of reality that you prefer to live in. And because this is a critical transition pivot point, taking those actions now during this year of 2020, whether there's actually an election in your area or not, is going to augment and amplify and magnify all the choices that are being made in the direction of your preference around the globe, so that you can accelerate the splitting prism and allow yourself to propel yourself and accelerate yourself in the direction of the reality that will be representative of what you prefer, so you can shift there more quickly and allow the idea of open contact as simply one of the things that can happen in that reality to happen in a more accelerated way.
Hello, Bashar. My name is Catalin. I am from Romania. Can you please share the differences that are occurring in different realities that have diverged themselves from this current timeline, starting at the 2012 splitting prism? What is different in these other realities with respect to this timeline? And maybe share some examples along the positive spectrum of this divergence and the negative spectrum, if possible. Thank you.
One particular reality that split off is that right now, in the equivalent time frame after your year of 2012, your globe, your entire globe, is under what you would call martial law. That's one particular expression that is happening in a parallel version of Earth. Not necessarily only because of the idea of a pandemic, but for other political reasons we will not go into at this time. But that's one version. A more positive version is that at this point in another parallel reality, we perceive that the recent information that has been released by your military about the existence and the validation of UFOs has actually caused the creation of a panel that will, in short order, within the next 3 years or so, come to full admission and disclosure that such things have been going on for quite some time. This will accelerate the idea of open contact in that particular reality.
Hello, Bashar. My name is Andres. I'm from Colombia, and I would like to ask you this. Some time ago, you channeled Willa Hilakrising, and she explained a lot about cryptics and about communicating with the nature spirits, and she proposed a meditation, and I really enjoyed that. So I would like to ask today if you have some more advice or some more practices on how to deepen my communication with nature spirits, and how can I work with them. I am a therapist, and my question is, how can I work with them doing my healing work? Thank you very much, Bashar.
We understand that in your time of sequestering, this may not necessarily be available to you all. In terms of the type of meditation that Willa has already offered you, in sitting with your back to a tree in front of a source of water and allowing yourself to penetrate in your imagination deeply into the earth and connecting with the root system and the mycelial network that connects all trees in a forest, to begin to access the information and energy that is going on there and match that frequency so you can become part of that particular ecological system, that part of the family of the earth. But you can, even within a meditation, still imagine that you can do so, even if you can't physically go to such locations at this time. Do this for at least 15 minutes, 15 days in a row, and you will begin to sense some changes going on within your consciousness that will allow you to experience more intuition as to how to guide yourself along the path of the cryptic. In time, Willa will bring through more information for the continuation of these practices. But for now, it is of paramount importance that you fully invest yourself and fully immerse yourself into what has already been given as that particular permission slip exercise. Whether you can do it physically or within your imagination doesn't really matter, as long as you are fully committed and fully immersed in that experience for at least 15 minutes, 15 days in a row.
Hi, Bashar. This is Caroline. So I wanted to ask you if you could speak on the process of a human shape-shifting into an animal, and also if that process is different from what the hybrids do in terms of shape-shifting. Okay, thank you.
The process is the same. The idea of shape-shifting is not a rearrangement of your molecules per se. It is nothing of that nature. You have to understand that all different versions of yourself, whether human or not, already coexist simultaneously in an infinite number of parallel realities. Therefore, the idea of shape-shifting is really more allowing yourself to match frequencies with another version of yourself that may look very different than you look, and doing it to such a degree that you're actually able to communicate the vibration of that other being, no matter what shape it is, no matter what form it takes, to other people in your reality, so that to some degree, matching your vibration, taking on that vibration, they will be able to perceive the other parallel reality version of yourself that has a very different shape. And you will appear to have changed your shape, but in a sense what you're doing is surrounding yourself with a vibrational energy field that is representative of a frequency of a different being in a parallel reality that has a different shape, to such a degree that others can also perceive it by matching their frequency to it.
Hi Bashar and everyone watching. I have two questions today. My first question is, what is the best way to approach limitations that are created by the collective and based on beliefs that I don't prefer?
First and foremost, of course, acknowledge that not all limitations are negative. You need some form of limitations to even have a physical reality experience. So first and foremost, relax the idea of the definition that limitation is always a negative thing. Then you can be more discerning about which limitations truly don't serve you individually in a particular way that you prefer. But again, the idea is that as you become more of yourself and as you follow the formula of acting on your passion to the best you can, with no insistence or assumption as to the outcome, and remain in a positive state no matter what manifests, so that you can receive the benefit from it, you will automatically be guided into circumstances and opportunities by synchronicity to allow you to gain more discernment about what limitations do and don't serve you, so that you can chart your path through life more clearly, more consciously.
And my second question today has to do with the grays. More specifically, the fraction of the Greys that used to be Earth humans on a different timeline and that winded up as the Greys. What was their process of transitioning into hive mentality or a collective mind? I'm trying to grasp the concept of this civilization being negatively oriented and yet unified to such extent. Thank you.
Understand that the unification came after they realized the mistakes they had made and after they let go of the negative and fear-based beliefs. But they realized that they had to be unified in that way in order to actually be effective in the time frame that was required for the creation of the hybridization agenda. So in a sense, they had to let go of their humanity to gain it back again. So they underwent a process aided and assisted by other beings, in particular those called the mantis type beings, who would act as the overseers to allow them to divest themselves of individuality so they could work in a unified and harmonic way to go through the process of the hybridization agenda most efficiently until such time as the hybrids themselves, such as us, would bring back the idea of the emotionality and the empathy and the humanity that they had divested themselves of on purpose so they could get the job done. But by the time they chose to do that, they knew that they had then let go of their fear-based belief systems in order to form the unification that was required for the hybridization agenda to be effective and successful.
Hello, Bashar. So nice to meet you electronically. In terms of time, when do you think this pandemic and the confusion, whatever, like however we interpret it, is going to end? Thank you so much.
I cannot give you an exact prediction, but we have already told you in the idea of the transmission of the eye of the needle that you are generally approximately at the center point now. So as many months as has occurred before this point will be as many months as will occur after this point. In general, you can take that as an overall parameter for the duration of this particular experience, but a lot of it still depends on what many of you decide to do with this time. The things we have suggested will accelerate you to some degree and bring you out the other side in a manner that can allow you to be far stronger and therefore perhaps not repeat this performance, but it is really up to you. But in general, you are about halfway through the experience that presently exists.
Hello, Bashar. I've been amazed about hypnosis and how it is a powerful tool on making suggestions to the subconscious mind, changing reality instantaneously. So I wonder, how can I use this tool, like self-hypnosis or guided hypnosis, to change my own reality based on the law of attraction? And what would be the most efficient way to reprogram subconscious? Thank you.
Understand that you are hypnotizing yourself all the time. When you buy into a particular belief system, the concept of unlocking from one belief system and going into another is part of the automatic transference that happens in what you typically refer to as a hypnotic state. You are allowing yourself to literally unlock from belief systems in a hypnotic state so that you can re-lock into new systems. That is the benefit of the permission slip called hypnosis, but you're actually doing that all the time you change any belief system whatsoever. So the experience or the process that we have described to you many times before of actually investigating what your belief system is saying to you and bringing that knowledge into the light of your conscious mind rather than leaving it in your unconscious mind or subconscious mind is the process by which you can unlock from the present belief system. Because when you actually see clearly and consciously what a belief is actually telling you to believe in, you will see that it might make no sense if it's out of alignment with who you prefer to be. And as soon as it makes no sense, you are in the proper hypnotic state to allow it to be gone and to lock yourself into a new belief system of your preference. First, the old belief system has to make no sense. And then you will be in the limbo state where the old belief system will be gone and a new belief system can be incorporated. That is the hypnotic state.
Hello, Bashar. Greetings. Who are the creators of the system Earth? Are they still here among us? Is Earth a special place in the universe? Why? Does our emotions has anything to do with that? Thank you for choosing my questions. See you and good day.
All places are special in their own way, but Earth was not created in that sense in the way the question has asked it. It is an old-fashioned way to ask the question. You can simply understand that various levels of consciousness of which you yourselves have participated in have created the opportunity called the Earth to go through transformations and transitions in a relatively unique way. So you are participating in the co-creation of the idea of Earth, just as other levels of consciousness have also participated in it for their own experiences as well. But the question cannot really be asked in the hierarchical way that it was asked, because that implies an old-fashioned definition that isn't really an accurate description of what is meant by the creation of a system. Your emotions, again, are reinforcements that aid and assist belief systems in seeming more real, so that the experience of physical reality, including the experience on Earth, can seem solid and real to you. So emotions and thoughts and behaviors are used to reinforce the idea that physical reality is real. Otherwise, you would see through the illusion.
Hello, Bashar. My name is Yvonne. I'm currently in Miami, Florida. And I would like to know ways to increase the vibratory resonance of the copper pyramid that I have. I have tensor rings, of course, and does playing frequencies also amplify the energy? Frequencies meaning, does mantras work? Playing frequencies to the pyramid and tensor rings as well. Does breathing intention onto the copper itself with my intention, does that work?
It can, because your own frequency is going to be imprinted in any device that comes from your creativity. So it's up to you to achieve a particular frequency within yourself so that you can immerse any such expression or device that you have created in the bubble of that energy, in the bubble and frequency of that reality. Now, it can bring it to a certain point, but again, you may find that when you increase your vibration and immerse that thing you have created in that bubble, in that frequency, it may resonate to such a degree that it will feed back to your imagination the specific kinds of changes and or improvements that you could make to it that will be representative of a more efficient way to construct that as a representation of the higher frequency. So it's like a feedback device. You can use it first as a feedback device by imprinting it with your vibration and receiving a feedback of a frequency that will give you the inspiration for how to change it to make it more efficient.
Hello, Bashar. My question is, was this virus man-made, artificially generated in a lab, or was it organically generated in nature? Thank you.
Organically generated in nature. As we have already explained, within a completely balanced system, many of these kinds of life forms and organisms are maintained within certain ecological parameters and do not go really very often beyond those borders until there is an imbalance. So they are the reminders of imbalance. When those barriers, when those borders are destroyed, they will expand beyond those borders to seek out the hosts that are available to them to express the reflection that there is imbalance in the world and that they have gone beyond their borders to expose that imbalance in ways that force the balance to come back by being dealt with in new ways than were ever thought before to have been dealt with by those who are now infected by the organisms who would not originally, in a balanced state, have gone very often beyond those borders.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
We have some questions from our streaming viewers.
All right.
The first question is there a parallel reality track with a healthy Earth future without ET contact and possibly without a past that was influenced by ETs?
Yes, of course. There are an infinite variety of versions of Earth, and certainly more than.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
We have some questions from our streaming viewers.
All right.
The first question is there a parallel reality track with a healthy Earth future without ET contact and possibly without a past that was influenced by ETs?
Yes, of course. there are an infinite variety of versions of Earth, and certainly more than one of them would be as you have just described. It is not absolutely necessary in any way, shape, or form for there to be ET interaction for Earth itself in one of its varieties, in one of its forms, to have a perfectly balanced reality. So yes, of course, that is highly likely.
Regarding parallel realities representing different versions of Earth, what are the distinguishing elements from one reality to another? Do landscapes and physical structures vary widely from one parallel reality to another?
They can. In a sense, there's really the entire spectrum. There can be parallel reality versions of Earth that are so similar you wouldn't necessarily know the difference. There are versions that are so different you might not even recognize it as a parallel reality version of Earth, and anything in between. So yes, but the ones that you will more likely than not connect to are going to be at least somewhat similar. There can be those that have some variation to a greater or lesser degree. There can be different landscapes, as you say, different configurations of cities, certainly. But overall, it would seem somewhat familiar to you, even if it was very different than the version of Earth that you are experiencing right now. It is not that likely that you would allow yourself to shift to a version that is so different that it wouldn't make sense for what it is you have chosen to experience in this particular timeline. But yes, it can vary greatly.
Since we are experiencing ourselves as being in a pandemic, is the best course of action to just go with the flow and make the most of the time rather than wrestling with questions about what's true and what's not true about the situation?
In a sense, yes, is the short answer. Going with the flow is always wise because your flow knows where you need to go. And if you are staying in that state of alignment, then you will automatically navigate through all the different versions of Earth and the different versions of what's going on right now with regard to the pandemic. You will navigate through it in a way that serves you best. It is not necessarily unwise to gather information about what's going on, but spending too much focus and too much time wondering what is true and what is not is simply another way of saying that you are deciding out of all the information you are receiving, which information is more representative of the parallel reality version of Earth you prefer and which information is not. So you can use the information, pro and con, as a guiding mechanism, but an over focus on the idea of what is true, what is not, can simply create more confusion in your life rather than looking at this from a holistic point of view, staying on course by following the instruction manual, the formula that we have given you, and trusting that if you remain in that frequency, the versions of Earth that you will navigate yourself through as you shift from one to the other will be always in the direction that serves you best and will be most representative of the versions that you prefer to experience ultimately. Again, remember, no matter whether or not you can still observe versions of Earth and versions of other individuals that are doing things you may not prefer, it doesn't mean that you will be affected by them. This is part of the natural outcome of the splitting prism into multiple versions of Earth, multiple tracks, multiple choices. You can see things right now and will for some time still observe things that are not necessarily what you prefer. But you have to know that by staying in the state that you do prefer, you cannot necessarily be affected by them unless you choose to be.
Thank you. Does this period of global pandemic we're now in relate to the Christian concept of purgatory? A period spent in isolation where the deceased are purged and atone for their sins. In other words, raise their vibration in order to be worthy of entering heaven, a higher dimension of physical death.
Well, in a sense, you can make an analogy like that, but instead of using the terminology purgatory, let's use the term limbo. You are in a center state, a passage state, passing through a particular idea, a particular challenge, a particular set of circumstances that does, yes, give you the ability and give you the opportunity to understand yourself, to know yourself more clearly, to determine in your self-investigation what it is you do prefer, and thus to raise your vibration in a manner that will allow you to experience the ascension, so to speak, that you prefer in creating heaven on earth. But the idea is not in the sense of atonement as much as it is the idea of alignment, that you make a decision as to what you prefer to align with and what you don't prefer to align with without invalidating anything. So it is an issue of remaining in the center, remaining in balance, remaining in a kind of limbo for a while. But that's just like the neutral gear on some of your machines to give you the opportunity to decide what gear you wish to engage in once you have made a decision as to what frequency you wish to operate on.
Thank you. I keep thinking about other dimensions, realities, and wanting to shift out of this one with the pandemic. However, I've also been stuck on what happens to the me in this reality. And also, I feel compassion for those who are stuck in the sadder realities as I'm shifting to the better one.
Well, first of all, the terminology doesn't help in terms of the way you're defining this, because no one is ever stuck. And remember that if you have shifted, the idea is that whatever you were experiencing in one particular reality is that person, is that you. It's not like you leave anyone behind stuck in a reality that you used to be in. Everything exists simultaneously. So even though you may choose to shift your focus to make it appear that you are no longer in that reality has always existed, does exist, and will always exist. It's not about being sad for them, because then all you're simply saying is you were sad for yourself when you allowed yourself to experience that version of reality. And being sad for yourself in that reality doesn't help you shift out of it. So in a sense, even though you're expressing the idea of compassion, being sad for them is not an expression of compassion. An expression of compassion would be to know that whatever version you think is still in, quote unquote, that reality, also has the ability to learn to shift out of it. And the idea, I know, can seem confusing to your linear space-time perspective, but nevertheless, everything that exists will always exist in that way. But you have the opportunity as a greater being to decide where your focus is. It doesn't mean that the other focus ceases to exist, but you have to grant to the versions of you in that reality the same ability that you had to shift yourself into another perspective. So I understand this can seem a little bit complex, but nevertheless, the idea of feeling sad about it isn't helping anyone, including yourself and the version of you that may be experiencing that reality still.
Okay. A lot of us can't actually do our passion as a result of the pandemic or even other health issues. Can you shine a light on how we can move forward with our passion under those circumstances?
Well, as we have always said, the idea in any given circumstance that may present itself to you, that you find yourself in, it is always about acting on whatever passion you are capable of acting on to the best you can. You may not necessarily right now be able to act on certain versions, certain expressions of your passion, but there is certainly versions of passion that you can act on. Remember, when we talk about it as passion, it's not necessarily the same thing you were doing a moment ago. It's looking at the opportunities that present themselves to you now in present circumstances and simply choosing to act to the best you can on whatever ones contain even just a little bit more excitement than any other version of what you are capable of acting on. And that means by doing that, you are still acting on your passion. You're still following the path of passion, even though it may be different, even though you may be choosing different things now in present circumstances than you were choosing before. So to say that you are prevented by the pandemic from acting on your passion is false. You can act on something that is at least more representative of your passion than any other choice at every single given moment, and just do the best you can with it.
Okay, thank you. What would birds, deer, moose, foxes, etc. do if they didn't have to spend their time in their lives foraging for food, fleeing for their lives, or killing prey and just surviving? Can animals evolve spiritually? And if so, what do they do with their lives, and how do they spend their time in a more evolved state?
Well, that would be similar to the way animals on our planet experience life. And yes, of course, they evolve as well. But the animal life on our planet is symbiotic, not predatory. So the idea is that instead of foraging, as you say, for food or killing each other for food, they would simply form new forms of relationships with other animals that would allow each to gain what they need energetically to sustain them without depriving any other animal of what it is they need as well to also sustain their existence. So over time, your animals can start to become more symbiotic than predatory. And to some degree, you're already seeing this shift as you shift your collective consciousness into the understanding that you yourselves don't have to be predatory. Then the animals will no longer in time have to reflect that predatory nature to you. So the idea is that now when you see on some of your videos, the idea of different species getting along that seemed before to be enemies, as you would say, you are seeing and witnessing the very beginnings of different species that might used to have been predators to one another or prey to one another, now beginning to coexist side by side. So it is something that animals can evolve into and will evolve into when they also have the ability to reflect to you the idea that you are becoming less predatory too and more symbiotic with each other.
Can you elaborate on the mechanics of how forgiveness works in terms of the fourth law of creation? What you put out is what you get back. You once said in a previous session, forgiveness is a vibration that has the ability to neutralize the negative consequences of a negative choice someone may have made previously. Yes. So exactly, do we get back what we're putting out with the vibration of forgiveness?
Yes, forgiving others is forgiving yourself in a sense. Mechanically speaking, it's breaking the links, it's breaking the continuity that you may have created that holds you to negative circumstances that may have been previously created by you or accepted by you in your life. So the mechanism of forgiveness is truly letting go of things you previously assumed were holding you back, such as regrets or such as needing the idea of some sort of an apology or something for another person to do, because then you are saying that that other person controls your ability to move forward and prevents you from doing so. So forgiveness of others is breaking those ties, breaking those chains to the consequences that came with negative choices or the choice to adhere yourself or connect yourself to negative ideas and negative experiences, and truly allowing yourself to be free to move forward in the way that you prefer to without having to rely on anyone else's actions in order for you to do so. That's the basic mechanism. And of course, it will be exactly what you put out is what you get back, because when you make a choice for freedom, self-freedom, and take responsibility for the fact that you yourself anchored yourself to situations you didn't prefer by assuming that someone else was controlling you by their actions, now by recognizing that you don't have to think that way, you don't have to believe that way, you will get back exactly what you're putting out, which is the freedom that you are also giving them to be themselves in their own reality, and getting back the freedom you are now allowing yourself to be yourself in the reality that you prefer by breaking those chains, breaking those links, breaking that continuity, and moving forward.
Thank you.
Yes.
Are we choosing our timeline as a collective, or are we as individuals only choosing our own specific timeline?
Well, it can be both, elements of both. In other words, you are obviously able to choose certain elements of your own personal reality, but at the same time, you're also choosing elements that have to do with the collective, or at least the collective of the reality that you're shifting to. So there will always, in a sense, be a collective reality you are aligning with to some degree, even as you make personal individual choices to shift, because you're shifting to other versions of reality that have their own collectives too. It's just that the collective in that new reality will be more in alignment, perhaps, with the individual ideas that you are also choosing to prefer to experience in that reality. So it's a combination of both. It's a dance between both.
It's not this or that, it's this and that?
Correct.
Okay, how do we know if we've actually gone through the eye of the needle or if we're going through it? What are some of the signs, feelings, or clues to look for?
Well, as we have already outlined to some degree, letting go of those belief systems which don't serve you will allow you to feel lighter, more free, more capable of experiencing flexibility and malleability and creativity and positive synchronicity in your lives. So the signs to look for when you let those things go as you pass through this compression period, this eye of the needle, is to feel more streamlined, to feel more accelerated, to feel more magical, to experience more positive synchronicity in a magical way, to feel more flexibility in space and time. Those are the general symptoms that you will experience. Your senses will expand. You'll be able to start perceiving things that might have heretofore been invisible to you as you become more sensitive to receiving higher frequency information and energy and experiences from other dimensions. These are some of the symptoms of the acceleration of having passed through the eye of the needle and arriving on the other side.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And lastly, what is the actual title to this transmission?
Well, it's actually quite obvious and simply put, the spinning wheel.
Okay, I know everybody.